Thank you for joining me here on the last segment of the show. Before I get into the last topic, Anthony, in your honest opinion, you really think how Howie Roseman is going to give Belichick full power of the roster like he wants? I don't think so. That's sort of why he, meaning the Eagles, kind of strayed away from Bill Belichick and how it just wasn't really going to work. And also, I believe that Bill is sort of not outdated, but just the fact that I feel like he would bring an old school way of playing. I don't think it suits the Eagles at this moment, and also, and I think also he hasn't made adjustments season to season when defenses adjust to him. That's also where that idea of him taking a step back sort of comes from. Yeah, they've acknowledged the fact that that is the case, and maybe it is time for a new voice to come in Kellen Moore. And I like the decision. Again, it probably took a lot for them to admit that and get Sirianni to take that step back. But I think ultimately it will prove to be the right decision because I think Kellen Moore is good as a coordinator. And he didn't get a good rep as a coordinator for the Chargers, but that's just the Chargers in that situation. They weren't really going anywhere. But now in the Eagles, it's going to be hard to mess that up. So that's where I stand on those questions, on those topics. But right now, talking about the Minnesota Vikings and their plan for Sam Darnold, because Minnesota will have their veterans report to camp tomorrow on July 23rd, and rookies were already there since yesterday, I believe. So right now, the biggest conversation is around the quarterback position, and the plan right now, it appears that it has been all along to have Sam Darnold as the starter right now, and having the patience really with J.J. McCarthy going forward, not throwing him into anything, and throwing unnecessary pressure on him where they could have Sam Darnold be that bridge guy, obviously, right now. And again, ESPN's Jeremy Fowler explained over the weekend that Minnesota views this experience ideally with Sam Darnold going in a way that it did with Geno Smith there in Seattle. And I actually have the quote. I'll bring it up for you guys on what Jeremy Fowler was meaning to and what he was reporting on with Sam Darnold. He said, "They believe there's untapped potential here. He's never quite had a supporting cast like this. They're hoping maybe he can have a Geno Smith type impact like in Seattle. That second act where he had a good next career arc." And right away, bringing up that comparison, not too far off, I believe, just because if you look at both of them and how similar it has been, most of them, or both of them, I should say, have spent most of their career as backups after being traded. Geno Smith was drafted as the number 39 ranked player in the NFL draft, and Sam Darnold, same thing, mostly as a backup, started with the New York Jets, but that didn't really go too well at all. But he was drafted much higher than Sam, obviously, at number 3. But with Geno Smith, he went to different places. He was with the Jets, obviously, first. Then he was with the Giants. And then he went to Seattle eventually. And in 2022, as a 32-year-old at that point, he had a career year, throwing 30 touchdowns in that year, having a pretty solid season for the Seattle Seahawks as a 32-year-old, like I mentioned. And then he earned himself a multi-year extension with Seattle that he finds himself with or in right now. And if you compare that career arc to Sam Darnold, again, has bounced around, has been with the 49ers, with the Panthers, and now with the Vikings. He is, in comparison to Geno Smith, he's only 27 years old right now, and and this is going to be his 4th team in the last 5 years, where he's just bounced around and hasn't been in a position to start really since Carolina, and that again just blew up in their face and just didn't work out right now. And Sam Darnold still at 27 years old, it's hard to really write him off because 27 is where most quarterbacks start to find their groove and really step into who they're going to be the rest of their career. And being on different teams, again, hasn't really helped them to really become comfortable in anything to sort of support Sam Darnold and how this situation could ideally go for the Minnesota Vikings, trying to show that USC talent to be that starter again. Because coming out of USC, a lot of people, I'm sure, rightly had him ranked as one of the top quarterbacks just based on what they saw at USC. But really the biggest thing that Jeremy Fowler points out is the level of talent, the supporting cast, like he mentions, in Minnesota. He's never really had anything like that, anything close to that. Not with the Jets, because they drafted him in the typical situation where teams just draft quarterbacks and don't support them. Same thing that happened with the Jets. In Carolina, they really haven't had anything very much talent-wise at receiver or running back since Cam Newton or anything like that. The closest thing Sam's had to this level of supporting cast with Justin Jefferson, TJ Hawkinson, Jordan Addison, Aaron Jones has been with the 49ers, but he never played. It was Brock Purdy's team, and he never played and got a chance to play with those guys. But again, with the Panthers or with the Jets, he's never even had anything close to someone like Jordan Addison even, or TJ Hawkinson. So now that you have all these weapons, why can't we give Sam Darnold a shot right now, right? You have nothing to lose. And in terms of this question that popped up when I was writing this segment down, is it selling? Are the Vikings selling themselves short with settling, you could say, for a Geno Smith type of quarterback right now in a position where they have such a talented supporting cast? Do you want a Geno Smith as your quarterback? Should you shoot higher for that now that you have a pretty decent team on offense and defense to go into 2024 with a real shot? What I would say to that question and how I came to my final conclusion on it was I think it's just worth a shot, since Sam Darnold showed the talent to, one, be drafted a lot higher than Geno is one thing. But also, again, he's only 27 compared to Geno at 31 and 32 years old. There is a lot more room there, arguably, for Sam to get a little bit better and learn some more in the next year or two, honestly. And then Geno's success happened with a lot less talented offense that the Vikings are working with right now, and that's really the biggest point of all of this, is that Minnesota is so talented, which is why, honestly, I probably would have liked to have seen JJ be more in a even quarterback competition, because I believe if JJ goes out there, based on how highly I rate JJ McCarthy, I don't think it'll be too bad of a show where he's going to go out there and absolutely bomb and look awful. This supporting cast is very good, and I know a lot of it is dependent on the quarterback to get the best out of their supporting cast, obviously, but it's honestly such a good situation, like Caleb and the Bears, just to compare it. For JJ to come into a situation like that, and that offense with Kevin O'Connell, a lot more creative-minded offensive coach, where it makes it a lot easier for JJ, or Sam even now talking about it, that it will make it a lot easier of a transition, a lot easier of a smooth thing to have going on with this whole situation. So that's why I have confidence, and I don't think it's selling yourself short, really, because you have JJ really as the long-term plan. And compared to Seattle and that Geno Smith situation, Seattle wasn't really planning past Geno Smith. I'm sure they were long-term, but they didn't have a solid confirmed answer that they knew that they could turn to. Right now, it's not selling themselves short if you're the Vikings, because if this Sam Darnold experience doesn't work, you have JJ to come in, and maybe it's a little bit earlier than you'd expected, but you don't have all your chips, all your marbles on Sam Darnold to carry you into this next phase or transition of your team. You have JJ to fall back on, and ideally you want to keep him on the sideline as much as possible, according to Kevin O'Connell, but you have him ready there with not as much pressure to learn as much as possible. And then if Sam doesn't work out, or maybe it's until next year that JJ gets a better opportunity, you have that long-term plan that you feel very good about, and it'd be short it'd be only selling themselves short if Darnold, like I mentioned, was their only choice. But because he is that bridge quarterback in the big picture, I think the Vikings have really built this up well. Maybe overly cautious, but to each his own. The Vikings still great chance to win it. Last year, they came close to making the playoffs with Nick Mullins, Josh Dobbs, and having a carousel at quarterback, and Justin Jefferson missing about 10 games or 8 games, something like that. So if Justin Jefferson is there, Sam Darnold can play at least to the level of those guys, or better, as they expect, as I expect. This team, I think, is going to do fine. Maybe we don't see J.J., and that would stink because I do really want to watch him, but they've done a great job of building this roster. They haven't sold themselves short. To compare him to Geno, it's better than that situation because they have J.J. McCarthy just waiting there, but that's in an ideal world. Of course, things could go wrong, but ideally, that is what the Vikings envision this entire thing going as in 2024. But that is that on the Minnesota Vikings, and that'll do it for today's show. I want to thank you guys for joining me on today's episode of the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast. Please remember to like, follow, and subscribe to the show, as well as following the network on all forms of social media. If you want to see more of this show, check out the GSMC Sports Network channel and the GSMC Podcast Network channel on YouTube, where you can find a lot more ways to watch this show and a lot more topics around the NFL. And as a final reminder, tune in every weekday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time for more discussions and conversations around the NFL with me, Manny Maradiaga, as your host. Thank you again for joining me. I hope to see you guys back here with me again tomorrow.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great. I don't wanna go to